Congress revised the Clean Air Act in 1970 to focus more on the issue of air pollution. Congress also made the Environmental Protection Agency. The EPA uses the Clean Air Act to make programs that reduce the amounts of outdoor air pollutants that cause smog, haze, and acid rain. It also lessens toxic air pollutants that may cause diseases and eliminates the making of chemicals that harm the stratospheric ozone.
Source that is out there, the single largest source of air pollution are coal-fired power plants. They emit a lot of the pollutants that contribute to acid rain. I think Scherer is the largest single source of carbon pollution in the U.S. Plant Scherer, it's a Georgia power plant. And it emits more carbon than any other single source in the U.S. They also emit particulate matter and fine particulate matter, and humans don't have any natural defenses to that. The only other way it's emitted is in natural causes is through forest fires, and those clearly aren't operating 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, the way a coal plant may be operating.
And particulate matter is so small you need a microscope to see it. And they have different terminology to describe the size of the particulate matter. But basically you just inhale it and it goes straight into your lungs, no barrier, no defenses, as Ashton was saying.
And it stays there.
And it stays there.
And it can kill you.
It's bad stuff. And the other source are mobile sources, and that's cars, buses, airplanes. That's a lot harder for us as attorneys to try to litigate and deal with those sources of pollutants, because you're talking about modifying behavior. Humans love to drive cars, and so getting people to change their habits and quit driving in cars and riding bikes and using mass transit more, that's a real challenge.
Unless the cars are idling, and when it's idling, it's just putting out emissions, and you're not getting any forward momentum in that at all.
And I think that
The Clean Air Act covers outside air pollutants that contribute to acid rain and smog. The Supreme Court ruled that the EPA must regulate carbon emissions from coal-fired power plants.
As the federal agency that implements Clean Air Act requirements through regulations, and they have just proposed in September, is that right, September of this year, a new regulation to further tighten the standards on emissions from power plants, which are one of the bigger pollutants in the U.S. And we should expect to see some legislative reaction to that, I would think, because
Well, I think the biggest issue in the Clean Air Act that EPA doesn't regulate are indoor air pollution. They cover all outside air pollution, and there are a lot of things that are hazardous to our health that are inside buildings as well that we're exposed to all the time, and that's something that it clearly doesn't cover, and the EPA doesn't regulate.
I think from a federal government standpoint, you do, like Cindy had mentioned earlier, to have some oversight and kind of set a direction. Some of it probably needs to be encouraged instead of law. I think the more we can get citizens educated, both from the federal level where the government is supporting things, as well as at the local level, I think that's where we're going to see real change. If you try to just mandate it, that's kind of a short term. You may get some benefits, but really look at educating people on how can we help, preserve, and there has been a lot of focus on sustainability, which is one of the reasons why we have a sustainability director or coordinator who actually can help us look at what initiatives can we do at the local level.
My concern about the Clean Air Act is now that we're seeing an administration that tends to push the limit on its rules and its regulations from the laws that have been passed in the past, and expanded their ability or their reach into all sorts of things, and the Clean Air Act is one of them. So when we see that the largest amount of energy is gained in this country through coal, and we see an administration who's utilizing the Clean Air Act to actually harm or decrease the ability of manufacturers of energy through coal to produce that energy, even though they've got the remarkable technology now that allows it to happen without the kind of pollution that happened in the past, then I think that we're moving a bit too far. We're moving in a direction that makes it so we harm the economy, make it so that it's more difficult for education to happen and jobs to be created and all sorts of things to be moving well in the real world, at the expense of what is probably not a significant increase in the quality of air. So the regulatory scheme is, I think, a little off base right now.
Thank you.
In conclusion, history has repeatedly shown that we can grow the economy while making tremendous strides in reducing pollution. We will need our smartest scientists, our brightest engineers, and visionary policymakers to get this done. The President has put forth a smart and prudent plan to slow global warming, to prepare for worsening climate impacts, and to ensure a safer, healthier future for our children and grandchildren.